posted it in set.
Okay.
You want to get started?
48.
Hi. You want me to say something off the? Yeah. You want me to do this, Jen, and how you started?
Ready? Okay. I'm going to call to order the full work session for the Jamestown City Council. It's Monday, August 16th, 2021, and it is 7:50 p.m. We'll need to begin the meeting by electing a president pro tem, as council president is currently absent.
Move to elect Ken Eklund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And I'll call the roll. Councilmember Sheldon?
Here.
Councilmember Olson?
Here.
Councilman Russell?
Here.
Councilwoman Graham Reinhardt? Here. And Councilwoman Eklund? Here.
So, Finance Committee did not have a full committee in attendance, so we are postponing all of our resolutions to next week's work session, with the exception of, we have two items to discuss for finance. One being sales tax. Ryan is going to discuss that. And then we have a brief presentation from the auditing group from our standpoint. So Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, so tonight we have Carl Widmer and Jared Picard here from Fresher and Malecki. And we're very excited to have a brief presentation on our 2020 audit. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Carl.
You all should have a handout in front of you.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Carl from Drescher Malecki. We are your new auditors, and here tonight is Jared Picard. Wanted to come in and really just provide a brief presentation to go over the results of the financial statement audit for the year ended December 31st, 2020. It was our first year working as the city's auditors, taking over for the previous auditor. Overall, just to give a compliment to the city, the comptroller and his staff. It was a really pretty easy transition with the cooperation and all the coordination throughout the different departments that we work with throughout the course of the audit. Made it a pretty enjoyable process. First years are often pretty difficult in getting to know everybody and the new policies and procedures that affect the financial statements, but this year was pretty painless. So here tonight, a short presentation before you, some slides are handed out, and it's really the goal is to facilitate a discussion to cover what we do, why we're hired, what the audit process includes, and then a quick financial statement highlight section with a focus on the city's general fund. So looking to the presentation, if you move on to the second slide, products of our audit. Each of the 5 items here are what were provided at the end of our audit. We issued all these items back in the middle of August. We completed our audit. The fieldwork was primarily completed throughout April and May, with the issuance on August 17th. First item is, of course, the financial statements. That's the primary product of the audit. And our main responsibility as your external auditors is to come in and provide that independent third-party opinion on whether the financial statements, with numbers that are compiled and maintained by the comptroller and his staff throughout the year, whether those financial statements can be relied upon by whoever's reading the financial statements. So banks, the bond market, resident taxpayers, those are all the users of your financial statements, and they look to your external auditor, Drescher Malecki, to provide our professional opinion on whether we think those financial statements are fairly stated. And the conclusion of our audit, we issued what's called an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion, what you should strive for. And ultimately, we believe these financial statements can be relied upon and are fairly presented. There's also a single audit and New York State DOT report. Those are compliance audits that are required that the city have over their federal awards and New York State Department of Transportation awards. Those were completed with no reportable findings or issues, so that is a compliment to all the controls that the city's put in place in administering the programs that they're using those federal awards and state DOT awards to perform. The final two items, auditor communications and management letter, essentially those reiterate what the responsibilities were on the city side as being the auditee and on Drescher Malecki's side as the auditor, and that both sides held up to their end of the agreement and the audit was performed effectively. A management letter gives us an opportunity to provide some best practice recommendations to the city. Our firm audits over 100 municipalities in New York State, so we're exposed to many different internal control structures and governing board styles. So if we see something that thought might benefit the city of Jamestown, then we wanted to bring those recommendations to you, and those are included in the management letter. Were there any questions on the audit process before we move into a quick highlight on the general fund? All right, moving on to the next slide.
Just want to note that you guys all should have gotten this detailed report along with the management letter and everything in your email. Brian sent that out last week, so that too.
Thank you. Slide 3 is a line graph depicting total revenues or money brought in and total expenditures or money going out of the city's general fund for the last 5 years. And looking at the graph, it tells the story that revenues have come in above expenditures for each of the 5 years presented here. And what that means is more money coming in than going out leads to an improvement or a growth in your fund balance. And that's basically the equity position of the city's general fund. Looking closer at 2020 compared to 2019, it does tell the story of a COVID fiscal year. You saw a decrease in both revenues and expenditures, just reflecting the decreased revenues brought in, less activity throughout the city, and also the controlled spending that was a smart measure to be taken by management throughout 2020 in handling the pandemic. With revenues around 36 million and spending around 35, the net difference was an improvement or a growth to fund balance of a little over $1 million for the year. On the next slide is a bar graph representing the total fund balance. So when you look to 2019 to 2020, that growth represents the amount of revenues that came in over expenditures during 2020. And that was, again, just over $1 million. So total fund balance at the end of 2019 was 4.8 million. At the end of 2020 was 5.9 million. In looking at this page 4 graph, the focus area, if a reader of the financial statements is going to focus on any one number, it's going to be that dark blue portion, and that's the unassigned fund balance in your general fund. That's what's considered to be the available fund balance. And looking on the next slide, we take a closer look and evaluation of that amount. So at December 31st, 2020, your unassigned fund balance was just shy of $4.6 million. The most common benchmark that's used by a reader of the financial statements is to take that unassigned fund balance and compare it to 1 year's spending. So on the previous slide, we mentioned expenditures totaled $36 million. When you compare that unassigned fund balance to that total annual expenditure spend, it comes out to 12.4%. And essentially, it's saying that you could make it through 12.4% of a budgeted year if everything were to stop right now with the fund balance on hand. Where that's important is that becomes a number that you can use to compare to other cities or just to measure your performance over the past however many years you want to look at. One entity that municipalities will look to for best practices and guidance is the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. And they've offered a few years ago now that a recommended minimum level of unassigned fund balance is 2 months, or 16.7%. So looking at the cities, you're currently at 12.4%, but as you see, that 12.4% has grown from 2% just 5 years ago. So you're on the right path. Fund balance is improving with the recent coverage. I know the comptroller is going to speak on it in a little bit. Sales tax being favorable. We'll see where 2021 ends up. 2020 was certainly an anomaly going through a pandemic. But as we see, we're not out of it yet, so 2021 certainly isn't going to be considered a normal year either. In looking at that fund balance level, that leads us to, on the observations, just the last slide, a couple closing comments. I had mentioned in the management letter we offer some recommendations, and there were a couple ones that have been discussed and that will be here to help the city with if they decide to implement anything. And the first being is implementing the fund balance policy. And that would really help identify what the city believes to be an appropriate amount of that unassigned fund balance in the general fund. So currently, that 4.6 million is about a little over 12%. What is the level that the city is comfortable maintaining? Because it relates to the city's ability to respond to emergencies in the event that something unbudgeted occurs. Do you have money on hand to handle those situations? That's where something like a fund balance policy can come into play as being useful. Another item that we discussed during the audit, no reportable findings, as I mentioned, but related to the payroll process, we looked at the software that's being used and noted that there's a decent amount of manual input of information that goes in there, and there are system upgrades out there available that would automate a bunch of that information, especially the data input side, and potentially reduce the risk of human error in some of those. We didn't encounter any errors, again, but it could improve some efficiencies and then also create some new tools, monitoring tools and reports that management and the board could use to measure whatever you wanted to look at in particular related to payroll. Outside of that, it really was a clean, pretty easy audit for the first year. So I want to say thank you to the comptroller, his staff, and all the departments that helped us out, and the council for hiring us. It was a pleasure working for the city. But I'm here if you do have any questions. I know that's quick. It's like a 90-page document to look through, but if you did have any questions, I'm available. Jared is too, and if not tonight, our contact information is on this final slide, and we encourage you to reach out and let us know throughout the year. Don't have to wait until next year's audit.
Anybody have any questions for them? I appreciate it. Again, there's some good information in there that we feel between the fund balance, the policy, and the payroll issue. Those are two things I think we really need to review and address, especially the fund balance policy. Nothing for them?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Safe trip back. Ryan, again, you had 3 items that we were just generally going to discuss, and that was the sales tax, the employee compensation, and I don't know if you want to address the budget at all. It's up to you. You want to wait till next week? You said you're not here next week.
Yeah, I'm not here next week, so I'm not sure.
We can get an email chain going between all of finance. I just had one question on it. I see you threw in on a Tuesday. I don't know how that fits in everybody's schedule. Normally, we used to meet before the voting session to discuss that.
We were really looking to the nursing feedback last year. requesting no fair amendments, so we were just looking to speed up the process overall next year, at an extra session.
But to me, that looked like you just shifted it from the voting session to the special session, to a Tuesday.
Last year, there were actually some deliberations in November, so we're just pushing everything up in October. Just in early October, actually, combining everything, just a couple nights, so. Again, we're open to.
I guess my concern is everybody's used to coming on Mondays. I hate to throw in a Tuesday. I mean, if need be on that voting session, if we needed to be here at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I think that might be more feasible for members because the Mondays are already blocked, same for, staff, versus a Tuesday. So I don't know what anybody's thoughts are. As far as moving it up, I'm okay with that. I'm not saying that. I agree with that logic, but throwing in a Tuesday, people are involved in other things, and I hate to have people modify their schedule too much, so.
Come in a little earlier.
You want to do that then?
Sure.
Just change it, then move whoever you had on the budget meeting to that 6, or
The voting
make it
session?
6 o'clock or whatever before the voting
Sure.
session. And if we need to change it, yeah, obviously the week before, we can move it up to whatever. Just put it on that date and get rid of that Tuesday then. Okay.
All right, and then sales tax, quick update for the public and the council members. We did receive our second quarter sales tax payment in the month of August, in the amount of $2.2 million, $2,161,708. It was an increase of $690,000 or 47% above the second quarter of 20, as well as an increase of $462,000 or 27% above 2018. Our total budget this year is $6.7 million, and so we've collected 57% of our budget after the first two quarters, as opposed to 47% at the same time last year. So it's really great news on the sales tax side. I think a lot of things, obviously the online sales tax collections are driving that, as well as with the price of gas significantly over the last couple of years. So, does anyone have any questions on that? That's all I have. Thank you.
What did you say our budget was now?
6.7 million.
Is there any members of the public, which I neglected to because we went right to their presentation, that would like to address the council before we move on to public safety?
Yeah, I would like to. Hi, my name is Jennifer Bell. I own a house in the city. I have some concerns about the proposed deer hunt, and I don't think Mr. Nelson is here today, right?
No, he's not.
Okay, I just kind of was wondering where the numbers were coming from, as far as, how overpopulated the deer really are, if we've done an aerial count, or exactly where the numbers are coming from. I know a lot of people say they see so many in their backyards, but I kind of feel like a lot of those people back up to wooded areas, which, you're gonna see deer. I have some concerns. I have some printouts that I can leave, so I don't have to talk you guys' ear off, but, there's a lot of other options we have, as far as there's a spay-vac, vaccination that you can give with a dart gun, so you don't have to actually track the deer. And it actually would work better because it'll make it so the deer can't have any fawns for 3 years, I think, maybe longer. I think that's a better resolution than killing them because it's not safe in the city.
Ma'am, where do you reside in?
I'm on the west side. I'm on Hess Street, off
Okay.
of Farmer in Jamestown.
I think you have emailed me, and I have gotten.
Yeah, I emailed,
And
I
I
think I
responded.
emailed everybody.
Yep, I have responded to you, and I have done it. I told her, I appreciate you reaching out to us. You have been one of the strong voices opposed to it, so I appreciate hearing your version and your side.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was only able to print out one each, but if you guys wanna make copies for yourselves,
Yeah.
or just pass it around or whatever.
I'll pass it on to Ms.
Yes, and I'd be more than happy to, fundraise for the state act if needed. I just think it's something that maybe we should look into.
Is Tom gonna present this at a, we're gonna discuss?
finalizing the deer management plan.
Ma'am, did you attend the public session that?
No, I didn't, I wasn't able to. And there's a lot of information about Lyme disease and, you know, how deer don't carry Lyme disease and they're immune to it. And I think there's just a lot of misinformation and, you know, things that really need to be looked into before we make such a rash decision, you know, talking about.
Anybody have anything they want to ask her before? And he said, I think you heard him, he's going to have it with clerk or someone will scan it and email it to all of us, so we will have that
Okay,
information.
I may have sent you guys
You did.
one of those articles
I
in
saw
there.
one.
I couldn't remember which one.
No, that's okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to respond to one thing. She said, where are we getting these counts? And I was a member of the committee, the deer population management committee. We didn't do an aerial count, and I know that that was something that was recommended by the DEC about 4 years ago when I was looking into this. But we did have one wildlife biologist, and I myself am a biologist, as a green biologist. But he said something that was kind of aloof. He said, if you see deer, that means there's going to be deer. And, you know, I'm more of a quantitative scientist than that. I think we need to do a better count of the deer. We could have got maybe volunteers from KCC, or if we're going to state to come and help us out to do a count like that, or maybe the police department could have helped us out with their drone to do some kind of aerial count to see how many deer are actually living in the city. So,
And I know it is hard, and there is a deer carrying capacity, which is the number of deer that's healthy per square mile, and the number goes up in urban areas because there's so many more places for them to eat and things that they find. So I don't know, it's more about what people are comfortable, I guess, you know. And I don't get someone who's they're not gonna be happy, you know, one deer will eat their plant, you know, I mean, it's,
I'm not a fan of not having a number, because I myself live on a wood line, and I could have 3 today and 20 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they weren't there, or that could mean that they were just passing through, so.
and you're a numbers person.
Yeah, so I do have some questions about this, and I'm interested to hear some more information from Tom's plan as well, but I appreciate you coming and presenting other options and stories for that, so thank you.
Thanks. We're gonna be here.
yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Nice to see everybody.
Okay, so then we'll move on to just a side note, Housing Committee was also canceled tonight due to lack of quorum, and so we'll move on to Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a member of the public talk about some noise issues at the 7-Eleven on the corner of East Second and Buffalo Street. Apparently there's a car or cars that come to loud music, usually between 9 p.m. and midnight. They can hear from their house. Stated that she had made several complaints to the police department, but we know how difficult it can be to catch any of these loud vehicles. The chief appreciated her comments and takes those to heart, and they will look into it. She also had concerns about a house in her neighborhood as well, which these might be a source of some other problems, and she's looking into that. For resolutions, we have Lieutenant Sam Piazza, Officer Chris Schimick, and Officer Zach Sandberg are authorized to attend the Field Force Operations Course presented by FEMA Center for Hazard Preparedness, held September 12th through September 17th this year in Jamestown, Alabama. Field Force Operations is how to handle large protests. And from what happened last year and continues to happen in some cities, this is something that we need to do. This is the first time any of our officers have attended this training, so this is very worthwhile. FEMA is providing the course at no cost to the city. The Center for Domestic Preparedness will pay for the officers' flights, lodgings, and meals. Can we approve that? Second resolution, FEMA has granted the city of Jamestown $36,680 for the fire prevention and safety grant. And this is going to be going to next resolution, well, the mayor is authorized to enter into agreement with the Chautauqua Children's Safety Education Village, 2696 Route 394, Asheville, New York, for the purposes of executing FEMA Fire and Safety Prevention Grant, subject to the approval of Corporation Council to form. So this is a lot more money than we usually get from FEMA to help with the Children's Safety Village, which will help educate children from all around the county, including the city of Jamestown. Also will provide smoke alarms to these children to bring back to their homes. There's a big lack of smoke alarms, especially on rental properties, even though it's a law that they have them. So I think this is a good thing. And our committee approved both of those resolutions. The next item was a block party application for St. James Church for September 19th, which is Sunday. Held on the property, they're going to block off part of this street. We were not allowed to, or didn't have their annual time festival they have down there, so this is something we're doing for the church members. Don't know if it's really open to the public, but I don't think the church will turn the public away if they don't. So that was approved by our committee. And finally, we have a special event application, the Schultz Management Group, celebrating their 50th anniversary on September 25th on their property on Fruitland Avenue. They want to have, having like a classic car show on the property. We're bringing a comedian from New York City. There's a local band full of people that would be playing, and as well as a DJ, and catering by Basil and Bones. They're also having their own annual picnic on the property at the same time, but they are inviting people to sign up to attend this event. The real issue that they have with us is they want to have a fireworks display. So they've applied for that. We've had several questions for that. It didn't appear that their insurance certificate named the city of Jamestown as an additional insured. We've been looking at that. They haven't paid the fee at this point. And, they submitted an application to have police officers at the event, but the police chief had not seen that at this point. So we have tabled this one next week. We're waiting next week to decide whether they can do that. So I think they're going to have everything in order at this point, that we will allow it. But the police chief did have concerns about fireworks going off. There are some residences nearby. Route 86 is not very far away from the site where the fireworks will be going off. But the fire department will be there. They will have a fire truck there in case there's any problems with that. As they were required to do at any time, that fireworks in Jamestown. They just thought this was a nice thing to do since fireworks have been canceled the last of Labor Day festivals, and Skunks didn't have the fireworks this year in the city of Jamestown. So people will be able to see them from quite a distance away. They didn't go with the largest package, but they still feel that people will be able to see these fireworks from quite a distance. We'll table that and we'll bring it back up next week for a vote. So that's all we have from public safety.
Thank you. Moving on, Public Works, or standalone.
Yeah, I was by myself today, so we should probably review most of this stuff. The one I figured we could talk about, since I see Pat's here, and I'm assuming that's wise, we are looking to purchase one work brow TR07 tilt rotating attachment for a DPW excavator.
Yes.
Did you want to add anything to that?
This will be for the new mini excavator that we just bought this past spring. This was something that we wanted to get when we bought the excavator originally. It just wasn't available at the time. So now that they're actually going into production, we want to have one ready and installed by next.
Just to make us more efficient, essentially?
Yeah, that's
Makes it more versatile.
absolutely.
It has a wrist on it so that it can pick things up from the side.
Yeah, so get the right operator on it, and we can really make a job go a lot quicker.
Was this a budgeted item?
Sorry?
Was it budgeted or is it coming out of contingency?
Yeah, this is, we had this in,
The capital.
Capital.
Yep.
Good, okay.
The other two, I'll hold off thing. The mayor and, Mr. Lehman commented about was a little remodel of the lobby here. They were gonna do some minor construction to kinda update the lobby a little bit. Anything more than that?
No, just, there may be a week where there's a little bit of dust, so we just ask folks to pardon that, but we are, trying to remove the wall that is in front of the elevators. So that's really just an update for council on that.
Let's say the other two we'll probably review and talk about next week.
Yes, at that point in time, it's time for, mayor's remarks.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Thank you, President Hessman. There are just a couple remarks for the public, and then I have a few items for executive session today. First and foremost, to council members, you probably received information about the Ritzer Award that will be on Tuesday evening at the Northwest Arena. We would love to have you guys there. We'll have other elected officials joining, and we'll encourage you guys, if you'd like to speak on that award. We'll give you some more information again tomorrow morning, just a reminder as well. So, I think it's 6 o'clock, is that?
6 o'clock, yep.
6 p.m. At Northwest Arena. The other item, like 2 other items I just wanted to, or I guess one other item for the public. 2 items. One, I do want to thank Deputy Fire Chief Kuhn and Rob Smith and his team for working with the Safety Village and applying for that FEMA grant. It's a really big thing. They've been trying to be much more active in the community. They're already pretty active, but to be able to go out and use the media and to partner with the Safety Village in doing that great work is a really huge thing. And so I just want to thank the Deputy Fire Chief and his staff for continually going out there and looking for new things for the fire department.
Thank you.
The other item I do want to let folks know is that the next work session, the Community Foundation will be presenting information on the recovery plan. They will be presenting the information from the listening sessions, so the themes that we have received. They will not be presenting, and there's a reason for it, they're not presenting any changes to the plan itself, but recommendations. So after we get those recommendations, then we'll huddle back again with the Finance Committee and the Council to see what other changes we want to make to the recovery plan. Right. So they'll be in next work session to present information for the Council and the public. And then the next session as well, unfortunately I will not be at the next work session, and some of the department heads will be missing. They'll be headed to NICOM. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, but you guys will be fine now. The rest of the department. I do have a couple items for executive session. I have 2 related to collective bargaining agreements, and I have 2 personnel matters to address with the council this evening. No action to be taken on any of those items.
Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Grant? Your call, please, stay.
Yes. If I could please have Jen, Ryan, Elliot, Chief Jackson, can't leave me yet, and then we're also going to have Roy Glosser join.